Don't get to do this very often, flying a B-17.
That's important. And men like our instructor have lived with this airplane long enough to become pretty good friends with her. So his job is just a matter of giving you the benefit of his experience.
Well, I'm going to start by giving you all a little bit of history on the airplane. It was built in August of '45, came on right at the end of the war. Didn't see any service whatsoever. The government actually sold the airplane surplus for $2,000 to the smelter. The smelter doubled the price to $4,000, sold it to Pratt & Whitney. They modified the airplane tremendously and moved the cockpit back 47 inches and put a fifth engine in the nose, which was a T-64 turboprop. And they flew the airplane as a turbine engine test bed up until 1967. They would take off on all four piston engines, shut those down and feather them in flight and run around on the single engine turbine. And they flew the airplane that way again until 1967, donated it to a museum in Connecticut where a tornado came through, threw some heavy airplanes on top of it and broke the airplane in half.
This is pretty neat, isn't it?
And we acquired it about 12 years later and spent 15 years building it. Coincidentally, after the war, you could buy these for a couple $1,000s, drain the fuel out of the tank, sell the fuel for more than you paid for the airplane, and then sell the airplane to the smelter, which was a huge business. This airplane is painted in the colors of the original Liberty Bell that flew 64 missions with the 390th Bomb Group based in Framlingham during the war. Our president and founder, Don Brooks, his father was the original tail gunner on the Liberty Bell, so he built the airplane as a tribute to his father and certainly all of our World War II veterans.
Routine, like this circle tour of the airplane at the start, for instance, makes the student's life a lot simpler. In the cockpit, you'll learn to follow the checklist because it helps you to keep your mind on your work.
1,300 gallons, oil's up.
Very good. Gear, cranks, and extensions.
On board.
Gear and system circuit breakers.
It's all checked in.
And as everybody gets in, just go forward, find a seat you're comfortable with. And I also want to tell you the earplugs look like candy. They're not candy.
Fuel transfer valves.
Are off.
Battery switches.
3 on and checked.
Hydraulic pump.
Is auto 700.
Generators.
60-some years ago, they were going in harm's way, bombing Germany. Brave young men, 19, 20, 21 years old. Some never came back. What a piece of history.
After you get the plane off the ramp and down near the runway, you're ready for the run-up, one of the most important checks of all. Center at an angle. That gets all your props safe over concrete for the run-up. And if there's a guy behind you, you won't blast him when you rev him up. As your co-pilot, the instructor locks the tail wheel while she's rolling, so that when the wheel's in line, the lock pin will drop into place. Tail wheel locked. And brakes. Brakes set. Maybe Maybe here you'll switch to interphone. Easier to talk that way. Then the checklist again, and the instructor's command to check trim tabs. Set them at 0. Elevator trim tab, rudder, aileron. You advance throttles to 1500 RPM for turbo exercise. And you know why it's important. To get warm oil circulating through the turbo regulators.
Before you rev them up, turn on your generators and check each one for ampere output. If they balance, they're all putting out all right.
Ampere output okay.
Now voltage and then turn them off. Check mags at 28 inches, starting with number 1.
While you're boosting manifold pressure, you remember there's a backfire hazard during the mag check.
Pull. Left.
Don't watch the tach, watch the engine. Roughness doesn't always give you a quick drop in RPM.
Back to command to call the tower for takeoff clearance.
Lock tail wheel.
Parking brakes. Hold it with your feet on the runway. Less hazard if you have to get away fast. Gyro. Set the gyro compass and check your compass heading against the heading of the runway. Tailwheel locked. Light out. Now let's see your rider. 3-point takeoff. Point? 3-point. Hold the tail down, but don't give it enough pressure to cause a lot of wheel drag. You'll have rudder control by the time you're hitting 50 miles an hour. With a crosswind, you might have to use the throttles a little. Rudder's enough today.
On 100 octane, you'd be using 46 inches and 2,500 RPM. Little less than that with this fuel. You'll leave the ground at around 100 miles an hour. Then a kick on the brakes to stop the wheel spin and gear up. In takeoff emergencies, the bare belly is better than wheels. Check the light, visual inspection later. 130 safe airspeed for power reduction. You'll find it all in the tech orders and your checklist. Co-pilot trails cowl flaps, returning each valve to the locked position.
Check your landing gear.
Up left.
Up right.
And when your flight engineer gets an okay on the tail wheel, the switch is returned to neutral. Things happen fast on the takeoff, and it's easy enough to tense up a little. You did well enough, but
Don't fight her, she won't throw you. Let's switch back to interphone again.
Do you always use this power setting for climbing?
Yes, with 91 grade fuel and up to 30,000 feet. Are you keeping her trimmed? Turbo and throttle settings always depend on altitude. For instance, if we'd taken off from a sea level field, we wouldn't need turbo or even full throttle for the early part of the climb. Another thing, always cut down manifold pressure before RPM. What's your altitude?
We're nearly 1,000 feet above the field. Fuel boost pumps off?
At 1,000 minimum. Check fuel pressure before and after. Look at your manifold pressure. Manifold pressure will creep up steadily on the climb if you don't watch it.
What about carburetor air filters?
Turn them off at 8,000. Don't often hit dust above that. Filters take air from inside the wing. In the kind of weather that ices up carburetors, air inside the wing is drier and warmer than that you'd get from the ram air intake.
you level off at 10,000 feet and cut her down to the proper setting for maximum long-range performance on 91 grade fuel. Manifold pressure down first to 28 inches. RPM next. You make this adjustment with one eye on the airspeed indicator because you use whatever RPM needed to get 150 miles per hour indicated. In this case, with your conditions, 1600 RPM. Then fuel mixtures to auto lean. And your co-pilot closes cowl flaps since you have a safe margin in head temperature.
All right, here we are. Granite stuff straightest below up to, say, 2,000. Don't know when we'll be able to find a hole in it. Instrument letdowns out. What are you gonna do? Don't you like it up here?
Like it better down a bit if I'm low on fuel. Need less power and less fuel for a given indicated airspeed. Air's not so thin. Props take fewer horses.
Crew positions. Automatic pilot, off.
Crew members at their proper stations. Side guns stowed. Ball turret guns up and pointing rear.
Booster pumps on. Your power plant should be ready for full takeoff power in case a go-round is necessary. Mixtures auto-rich, intercoolers cold, carburetor filters on, wing de-icers off. Alden Tower, this is 641 on downwind leg, over.
641 on downwind leg, cleared to land, wheels down, over.
Roger.
Landing gear down. Down left.
Down right. Tail wheel down, trailing antenna in.
You hold airspeed at 130 indicated on the base leg of the pattern. Then, in a matter of seconds, you make your bank into the final approach.
Full flaps. High RPM.
120. 115. Don't close your throttles until you're sure of a landing. 112. Hydraulic pressure's okay. Otherwise, you'd gunner and take off again. Cowl flaps open and locked. Wing flaps up. Get them up sooner if you have a muddy runway. Tail wheel unlocked.
Cutting the inboard engines is the co-pilot's duty normally. The pilot should keep his mind on his taxiing. But it's quiet on the hangar apron today, and the instructor asks you to do it.